Hey guys and girls, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time today. We've got some new updates and Nikon news and little tricks and tips that I'd like to show you and run you through some new acquisitions, purchases that I've had recently pertaining to my gear that I have. So I thought I'd show you through all that. So what I'd like to do is start off, if we may, and we'll talk about new Nikon firmware. Now the new release camera, the ZF, which is a magnificent retro-styled full-frame camera, sort of very similar to the ZFC, just a larger version with a new processor. That's recently had a firmware upgrade, and that firmware upgrade has enabled it now to have some little bug fixes and minor improvements. So we're just pleased, really, aren't we, to see any sort of a upgrade, firmware improvements, etc., that are going across the board with the Nikon products. So it's not exclusively just the Z9 getting hammered with all these firmware upgrades. It's nice to see them trickle down to many other camera varieties that Nikon produce. So we're very pleased with that. We always give Nikon thumbs up and credit when they are doing bug fixes and firmware upgrades of any sort to any camera model. So we're very pleased and thank you for that. So that was always a bonus. There have been no immediate new releases as far as Nikon lineup goes in the last 30 days or so. Recently there was news on the release of the 600mm PF lens. That's the 6.3. So 600 millimeters in focal length, 6.3 in its smallest aperture for f-stops, and it's a prime lens, and it's apparently very magnificent. And that was one of the things I wanted to upgrade my opinions on, because I've not actually had any time to handle this lens. But I've read a lot of reviews and watched a lot of videos, and the common consensus seems to be that it is of extremely high quality. So yes, it does end up still the same as the zoom, 180 to 600 millimeter. It is still that situation of being 600 mils to 6.3, but it is sharper and it is faster to focus. And of course it has that lightweight factor, which makes it easier to carry around. So overall, all in all, it's actually quite a great product and people are being very impressed with it. So again, I'd like to give credit where it's due. Apparently it's very well worth the extra money. Of course, you do lose the zoom factor, which means your versatility is lower. And if I could just give the illustration just today, I was out taking some video with this 150 to 600 mil up to 6.3 zoom from Sigma with my Nikon Z9. And I like to do a little bit of video from time to time. And I was taking a video of a heron, which I'll show you samples of very soon. And when I was taking those video samples, this heron kept coming closer and closer and closer to me. And I was already starting off at 400 mils, and as it was starting to come closer, I'm having to go back to about, I think it was 230 by the time it got as close as it wanted to. And I thought that was great because I had the zoom. I didn't have to pick up and get up and remove and set up the tripod again. But again, what a nuisance it would be if I didn't have that zoom ability. So whether that be the bird come towards you or move away, it's very handy to be able to zoom in and out without having to pick up and move your whole arrangement. Particularly because you can often startle a creature, whether that be a bird or a pet or whatever it happens to be. You don't need to startle them, and moving around, picking up gear and making a racket and rustling around can startle the creature and they can actually leave the scene. So that could be very disappointing. So as good as the 600 is, and I think I would highly recommend people getting it if it's in your budget and you like that sort of focal length, just do constantly be aware that you are very limited in your choices if your creature you're filming is moving, or your subject. Let's say you're doing sports action, and 600 mil is fantastic when that person is playing sports at a certain distance away. But when they start coming in close, well, what do you do then? You're taking a photo of one eyeball. It can get very frustrating. So zooms are incredibly handy. I still highly recommend a zoom for that sort of application. I've got one. I would like to get, what I wish they'd do is have like this. Well, I suppose they've got the TCs, haven't they? So they've got the 400 TC and the 600 TC telephoto lenses. And they're primes, and yet because they have the teleconverter built in, it's sort of like a zoom arrangement, isn't it? So I suppose if I had an unlimited budget, I would be getting one of those, probably the 400 because of the versatility. With the 400, I can have a 2x teleconverter, which I personally know works extremely well with the Nikon lenses. I would have that with me and have anything from 400 to nearly 600 with the inbuilt TC, and then I can always put on a 2x teleconverter and get 800 or more if I need it. And that way it sort of works out like a zoom, sort of like a 400 to 800 versatility. Now that would actually be really handy. But of course then we are talking big money, aren't we? We're talking, for Australian dollars, it's about $25,000 Australian. And you might be thinking, well, maybe a couple of lenses is better value. I might be able to buy the 400 prime and then have also maybe the 600 or 800 prime, and it's still cheaper than those two lenses, and which they are. And they are also excellent lenses to have if you need a range. However, the difficulty then becomes that you're taking several lenses with you, and that's bulk, and it's a lot of weight and a lot of hassle swapping over. So not everybody either can afford or wants the weight and space on themselves having two different lenses with you. So this is where the zooms or these TC lenses are great. However, having said that, I do know that the 400 prime and the 600 prime recently released are actually very excellent Nikon products for the Z mount, and to be highly respected and appreciated for what they are. So if that's your specific focal length, that's your niche in the market, so to speak, then by all means you can always get the primes, and I'm sure you'll be very happy with the fact that they're so much lighter to take around with you. Yeah, so while we're on the subject here, we're talking about long telephoto lenses and their versatility and usefulness. I have one here with me, and I'm just going to illustrate something. I've just been charging it, so excuse me. I'll unplug it from the charger there, because I was out today filming and taking photos, so obviously I've run the battery down a little bit. But this one here, where we've got the Sigma 150mm to 600mm, very versatile focal length, and ends up at 6.3. That's its brightest aperture at 600mm. Now it's f5 at 150mm. So you've got that variable aperture factor, and f5's quite welcome when something's in close, and 150mm is all you need. So anyway, I've been using this and enjoying it today, and it's fantastic. As you can see, it does have the extending barrel design. So unlike the Nikon 180 to 600, which has a fully complete barrel which doesn't extend, which I think is actually a better system, but this one does extend. But what is interesting about them both that is very compatible and similar is the filter thread. So here in this filter thread arrangement at the end, they're both 95mm filter threads, whether you have the Nikon version or the Sigma version. And with the filter threads, it's very important when you're doing video that you do have a filter with you. And I'm going to give you some video samples just to illustrate that and just how versatile and useful a proper filter is. Because, and the reason I mention it is I've recently purchased a filter. So here I have a Kenko filter. And when I purchased this filter, it came in this lovely little pouch, which keeps it all safe and secure, which I'm very appreciative of. That's fantastic. The interesting thing about this pouch is I use a cotton carrier system, which is like a vest for carrying the heavy camera. And on that vest, there is a little slot where I can use this little Velcro flap and clip it to my vest, and therefore I don't have to hold that or carry it around or have it in my pocket. It just clips onto the vest just below my chest level. That's fantastic, so I love that. And everything being padded as it is, it keeps everything safe. So when you're spending what I did, and I've spent $200 on this filter, that's $200 Australian, and that's quite a bit of money to throw around just to get one filter. So here we have a ND16. Now I bought an ND16, which is several stops of light, darker, and that's for video particularly. So look, you're going to have filters for photo. I often use for my photography polarizing filters, the circular polarizers. But for video, the ND filters are the way to go, I think, because you can choose a much darker arrangement. I noticed when I tried to do video last and I gave you a demonstration, and it was a little bit of a mockery, a bit funny, because I had to actually tape a very large 100mm square filter to the front because I just didn't have a 95mm filter with me. So I purchased this 95mm filter, and that's cool, that's great, and it worked really well. I tried it out today, and those extra stops down in light, the darkening, made the video settings so much more natural and real and comfortable to use. So I could use the native ISOs, I could use nice apertures without having to go like f11 or f16 in order to darken the image. So I wanted to retain that depth of field look, but at the same time I needed it darker. And I was shooting the video, I might add, at 120 frames a second and 240 shutter speed in order to get as dark as I could. Now it also helps with stop motion, slowing down the motion, etc. if you need that. But more than anything, it just helps getting a darker image. But the filter enables me to shoot at any video format now, and I can get it dark enough that it's not overexposed. And this is particularly a problem on a bright sunny day, and I was taking videos of white herons. So you can imagine the sun on a white heron on a bright day. It can get very, very glary indeed. So these filters are just magnificent and essential. And of course, it's as simple as it's just screwing things on. They come on very easy. And there you go. Now I've got my filter on and I can do video at whim when I want. And if I'm going back to photos, I can quickly just unscrew that, get rid of it, and we're back to the clear lens. And I'm going to have a nice shot with photography, because you can always darken the photos very easily just by increasing the shutter speed. So instead of shooting the photos at 500th of a second, you can easily shoot them now at 5,000ths of a second if you need to darken the image. And that's a very quick adjustment. Video, you don't have the luxury of those sort of quick adjustments. So anyway, that's what I bought recently, and I want to talk to you about that. I've tried it out and tested it. This Kenko 95mm ND16 worked very well. Now, of course, you can buy them in ND4s, ND8s, ND16, ND32, whatever you want, any darkness. This one just particularly suited me very well. For the areas that I shoot, we're in bright, sunny Queensland environment, and here in Queensland, it's sort of like Florida or California in the United States. It can be very warm and bright and sunny for extended periods, so a dark filter was very handy. So I'm just happy I got that filter. Now, while we're talking about the filter, it's not solely just for this lens. I've been able to purchase also for just another $10 an adapter ring, step down ring. So what this is useful for now is I can put the filter on this ring. You see it just very quickly screws in there. And now I can use it, if I should wish to, on my 85mm Sigma Art lens, because that's an 86mm filter thread. This is a 95, but I've got a step down ring that goes 95 to 86. And now I can convert that new filter I just spent $200 on and now use it on my prime. So if I want to do video with my prime, I can certainly do that now and have a nice shallow depth of field, but at the same time take advantage of that new filter I purchased and spent all that money on, and now I can use it over on two lenses simply by getting that ring, adapter ring. So I'm highly encouraging people that, if you're going to buy and spend all the money on a filter and a high quality expensive one, make sure you get an adapter ring for it so you can use it on several rings. So step down adapter rings, I highly recommend them because you're just getting more value for money. It's like having bought two filters now, isn't it? Because now I can use it on the 86, I can use it on the 95, gives me some versatility. So that's a handy purchase and I was very happy with it. And I just want to commend Kenko on this little soft pouch that I think is fantastic, where I can put that in there, keep it all safe, dry, clean and scratch free. So that's a great little pouch they provide for you with it. So we were mentioning earlier about the 600mm lens, and a new release also that Nikon had brought out not long ago was the Planner. Now that's the 135mm f1.8 prime for portraits predominantly. And that's a beautiful lens, well constructed. It's really a little work of art, isn't it? And they're very impressed with the bokeh and the focus acquisition speed and the beauty of the image. And that's something to be proud of, and that's fantastic. I'm very impressed with that lens. It's quite expensive for what it is a 135, because that's not a focal length a lot of people just stick with all day. But if you can afford to have one of those in your kit, then I'd highly recommend you do so, because I think it's a magnificent lens. Now, in regard to that, a Nikon professional has done some testing and they did some comparisons. So they used the Planner and they compared it with what would be the equivalent of this, the Sigma 135mm f1.8. Now I've just picked up the 85 1.4, but it's a Sigma lens and that's the point I'm making. And so this Sigma Art lens, which I have personally owned before at 135mm at 1.8, I found very good. Just didn't use it enough to keep it. It just wasn't worth being in my kit because I just never pulled it out. But the point of my discussion right now is that people have tested the two comparatively, and the end results, which I will show you in picture form in the corner of my frame here, is that this gentleman come to the conclusion that there was actually almost very little difference, maybe 10% difference at best. So the Nikon one was probably, obviously it's more compatible, you don't need FTZ adapters, so that's always handy. And of course it's got Nikon build quality and optical greatness, so that's great. But the end result, that is the actual images he found, were almost identical, and sometimes he couldn't tell one from another unless he started really 200 times pixel peeping. So the point of the lesson there really is diminishing point of returns. You know, if you've got a 135mm 1.8 lens from one brand and you've got 135mm 1.8 from another brand, and they're both highly respected, high quality builders of lenses, the advantage in spending 2 to 3 times more on the on-brand Nikon, say for example, version is often only this much advantage for this much extra cost. So for extra $2,000 more, you get this much improvement. Well, that's up to you. Like if that's something that's really essential to you and you need that perfection and optical brilliance to be confident in your work and happy to present it to your clients, then that's fantastic. By all means, spend the money. But the point this gentleman was making is very often the returns are not worth the investment. So am I ditching on Nikon equipment? Absolutely not. No, I don't own Nikon equipment because I don't like them. I'm shooting on a Nikon camera right now, the Z6. I have a Nikon Z9. I have various Nikon lenses. So I've got no problem with Nikon products. But I'm just trying to help you open your mind up to be under the impression that you don't always have to spend top dollar to get top results. So now what we're going to talk about just for a few moments is these battery packs by Godox. Now I have 2 different sorts here. I actually own 3 of these battery packs, but for demonstration purposes now, I need only show you 2. But if I may just illustrate them to you here. Here I have, and it's the ProPack PB960. And I have 3 of them, as I say, and they're a large battery, lithium-ion battery pack for your speed lights. Now, you can get these, even though they're a Godox brand, you can get them for any camera or any, I should say, speed light manufacturer you wish. You just buy the different cables. Now, as you see here, this one, for example, has a Y configuration in the cable. You can see it comes into the 2 ports. So there are 2 ports available, and this is jointed into one now and made it a super powerful unit with 1 cable coming from the 2 ports. So rather than splitting it into 2 different speed lights, and when I say 2 different speed lights, let me illustrate here that when I do backlighting, I'll use these 2 speed lights together on a light stand, and I'll have them with 2 different colors. You might be able to make out the 2 different colors there, blue, green, whatever colors you happen to want to use in context. And I'll have them mounted up behind the subject and they'll flash behind them and give them a nice glow of whatever color. And that sort of makes them pop and sort of adds to the theme. I'll show you pictures very soon of what I'm talking about and how that looks and works. But my point is not waffling on too much about backlighting. The point is to explaining that these here are Nyongyo speed lights, and what I'm using is a Godox pack, but I can still power them because by buying a Nyongyo cable, which is actually exactly the same as a Canon cable, I might add. So the fitting here as a Canon cable actually fits the Nyongyo battery for the speed lights. So what happens in the side of these units here, there is a little clip, and you can open that up there. You may be able to see it now. It's a little socket with pins, and then what you can do is you can simply place now this power pack into the speed light. You place it in, and what that is now doing, this power pack, is this power pack now is powering the flash unit, the flash head. Now you'll still need batteries in to operate the electronics. So you put batteries still into the speed light, but that's only now to power the electronics internally, to activate it. All the flash power, and that's where all the drain on the batteries is now onto this unit here. And this will last you all day. You'll get a good 8 to 10 hours worth of speed light work all day at full power and never have to worry about changing the batteries in the camera. And because the batteries in the speed light are only using for the electronics, it's not a drain on it in any way. Now, what I'm illustrating here is that you can have the 2 cable setup, which this is a 2 cable setup. You'll see there are 2 cables inserted into the top of the units, and I can now power both speed lights simultaneously by plugging them both in. There we go there. And as you can see, you've got the cables going into both of the speed lights now. And with this turned on, I can now power these all day and they'll just run flash, 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 full strength for the full duration of the day. And I never have to concern myself with weak batteries or recharging or running out or carrying hundreds of batteries with me. This one battery will last the entire day. So that's fantastic when I'm using this double rig. But what if I'm not using a double rig? What if I don't need 2 speed lights, I just need 1 and I'm having it with me all day? What can I do? Well, let me illustrate. I'll just get rid of this extra unit that I'm not utilizing right now in the drawer. And if I can illustrate it with this battery pack, again, same sort, but I'm now using that Y joining configuration, which empowers me now to double up the longevity of the battery lasting and also the power strength. So with the dual setup, you may have a refresh rate of less than 2 seconds, 1.5 to 2 seconds before it'll flash again at full power. But it will last all day. That's actually really good because it can be up to 4 to 5 seconds if you're just using the batteries in the speedlight. So it's not only faster, but it's a longer duration using the battery pack. But if you're not splitting it and you're just using this Y configuration, joining it into one cable into your speedlight, now when you join it in together, and it's plugged in there, and you turn it on, now what's going to happen is you're going to have this flash being able to recycle every 1 second. So it's just pop, 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 hard, full power all day. And that's magnificent. So I'm really impressed with the fact that I've got these options and choices. I tend to use these because I'm sick and tired of being out on site, and there's time periods between you're shooting, between one setup and another setup and one location and another, and you're leaving the speed lights on for long periods of time. You come back to take a flash and you don't realize that the batteries are too weak now, and it's only either at half strength or it's not working properly or functioning intermittently because the batteries inside this unit have run out because you're expending them on powering the flash. Now you can be confident that this battery pack will now power this speed light all day, and you'll never have to worry about it running out of strength. So whether you're using it for backlighting or you're using it as your main light, and you're just using it as a speed light straight up, either way you'll have strength and power to run all day. So I'm just highly recommending them as an option. There are other options. You can buy speed lights with lithium batteries in them that are rechargeable, but they're not going to last as long as a big power pack like that. So the power packs I think are great if you're doing a lot of speed light work over a long period of time, and I just want to draw your attention to these. I found them very good. I've used them quite extensively, and I now own 3 of them, and I'm very impressed. So value for money wise, they're fantastic. You can buy more expensive versions, but again, it comes to that point of diminishing returns, isn't it? You can spend 3 times as much but end up with the same result. So what was the point? So anyway, thank you for your time on that. I just wanted to bring that out because I think that's a very relevant thing if you're right into speedlights and you're using them extensively. So my most recent photo shoot opportunity was at an event called Brisbane Supernova, and it was in the Brisbane City Convention Centre, and I was taking a lot of photos of my friends there. Now I have a vast community of friends that are involved in the cosplay, anime, gaming community, and I'll often take photos for them. It can be event locations, it can be in parklands and gardens, and just depends on the situation. But this was a convention and there were many thousands of attendees. So I took quite a few photos, and I'm going to post them up there and you'll see them in the corner, and I'll give you some sample shots of what's going on. And the reason I'm showing you these photos is one, because it just goes to show I'm using the equipment of Nikon. So I was using the Nikon Z9, and I had my 85mm lens here, Sigma 1.4, and of course I was using a polarizing filter there. So I like to use a polarizing filter because I'm doing all the photos outside and it's a bright sunny day. So it just helps take the glare off any background light or reflection off concrete or of course sky that you see poking through. So that was good. The lens worked extremely well, got focus every time. The Z9 is magnificent to use, and I love the fact you've got the grip, so when you're going from horizontal to vertical, it's very comfortable in the hand, and all the button layouts make it ergonomic and very, very efficient. So I took, I think it was about 1,500 photos over those 2 days. So that was 2 8-hour sessions of photos, and it was pretty much non-stop photos. See, what happens for me at these conventions is I'll have bookings. So my friends will book little half-hour intervals, but in between that, I'll often get people just come up and say, "Oh, Mark, you're taking photos today. Can I have my photo taken?" And of course, I squeeze them in as best I can. So what I expect is going to be maybe 8 to 10 clients a day, can often end up being 20 to 30. But that's okay. Look, that's what I'm there for. I'm there to be of service and to help people. And if I can do that and they get a good photo and I have a fun day, then everybody wins. So anyway, I've got some samples to show you. I'll put those up so you can have a look. And what it does illustrate is 2 things. A, that there's nothing wrong with using an off-market lens like that Sigma. It works perfectly well, and it's very, very high quality images. Secondly, the other thing it brings out is the value of using polarizing filters when you're outside in bright conditions. Thirdly, it's the Nikon Z9 is a magnificent camera, and it's a joy to use and very, very functional. The other thing I would like to mention about it too is the backlighting. You see, I have a forward light, I have a diffused speed light that softens and gives a nice soft glow of light on the subject, but then I'm using those twin rigs of backlighting colours in order to get some pop and colour behind them. And this often suits the theme because these cosplayers often have very bright, colourful costumes. So if you can add some more colour to that, it only makes it pop that little bit more, makes it exciting, and gives your photos a bit of variety and difference to everybody else's. So those who are out there with just a camera and a lens and no speed lighting at all, well, what happens there, the photos can be nice and well composed, but they can look a bit dull and flash comparatively, where mine will be a little bit more colourful, a little bit more poppy, and of course there's the correct amount of light on the actual subject from the right angle. So that's all important. Now, you may notice that my light is fluctuating in brightness. That's actually an internal home electrical issue I'm having. So it's not the light that is faulty. A lot of the lights here are flickering and going brighter and darker. We'll have to get an electrician in to see what's going on with the power fluctuations. But I apologise for that if it's very distracting. I'm finding it a little bit annoying myself. But I just thought I'd point that out, what's going on. I'm well aware of it, and I'll be on to fixing that soon. But thank you anyway very much for your time. I appreciate you always joining me and having a discussion. Of course, you're always welcome to post a comment, and I'm happy to take on criticism, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can that is useful. So in the meantime, you have a great night, and thank you very much for your time once again. Bye-bye.